Okay, in preparation for our 3B practice or assessment, that'll happen on Thursday. So tonight, hopefully the night before the test, you're reviewing this. Um, some key elements is to focus on the words. There's going to be a lot of words on the assessment. The key word here is find the slope, and it's not any particular slope. It's not parallel or perpendicular, and this is something you've seen before. What you're thinking of right away is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. It's a little bit easier just to remember delta y over delta x, change in y over change in x. Okay, so we identify x, y, x, y. Keep in mind if you're going to do the 6 and the 1 first, you do the 6 and 1 first. You don't switch which one you're going first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do my change in my y. So take the two y's and subtract them. Take the two x's and subtract them. Keep in mind it's 6 subtract negative 5. Lots of people tend to lose a negative there. And then 1 subtract 2 is negative 1 over 6 plus 5 is 11. You have a slope. And that's all that question is asking you to do is find slope. Most of the time, you need the slope when you're writing the equation of a line. In this particular question, the second one, the same goal. It says slope of the line, so same thing as above. So we're going to do we're doing a change over y over change in x, but I need to be real careful here. I need to find those points first. You can do rise over run. I'll show that in a second. I'm going to pick that point, which is 0, 4, and I can clearly see this point, which is negative 2, 0. So I have 2 points, 0, 4, negative 2, 0. Once I have this, I establish it just like I did before, x, y, x, y. And I'm going to start with this one. So 0, take away 4 over negative 2, take away 0. Negative 4 over negative 2 equals 2. Now we have the fortunate pleasure of being able to do rise over run also. Move from left to right. So I'm going to pick this point first and move to this point because it's this one here is on the left side. Rise 2, run 1. Rise 2, run 1. Gives me the same result, 2. Next. This one says slope, but it's not slope of anything. It's slope of perpendicular line. What we need is we need the actual slope. Well, they give it to you. It's right here. And what to remember here when you want the slope of the perp, that's what that little symbol means, is you flip it over, so it's now 3 over 2, and change the sign. It was positive, now it's negative. That's all you had to do here. Now, the big question is, can we write the equation of a line? Well, when we're writing an equation of a line, we need these slopes. So that would be your first order of business if you're writing the equation of a line that's perpendicular. Next question. This equation is put in slope point form or point slope form. It's basically, this is what you're going to outline later, is these two numbers, the 11 and the negative 5, represent a point. The 11 is with the x, so it's the x, but it's got subtraction in it, so I need a negative 11. And y is subtract 5, but it's got a subtraction in the equation, so it's 5. The equation I'm referring to is y minus y1. See how the formula has a subtract in it? Equals mx minus x1. These two pieces here and here are your point, xy, and that is your slope. Those are the two things we're going to need to write equations of lines. They gave me the equation here. So my slope here is 3. So once I have slope, the question says find the slope of the parallel. Well, two lines that are parallel means they slanted exactly the same. They never meet. So the slope here would be 3. But now, again, perpendicular, we're going to take that 3, which is 3 over 1, and flip it over and change the sign. Remember, any point you're not really sure, remember this is a video, so you can stop it and you can go over the same part again if you need to. Now we're going to do the same thing. Goal is slope, but now we want the parallel and the perpendicular. So yes, there are points on this graph, but the points will change for different lines. So if I want the parallel slope, I'm looking at a parallel line, so the points won't be important. What is important here is I'm allowed to establish a slope. So I'm just going to pick any 2 points. You can pick any 2 points you want. You might want to pick that one because it's got this one here because it's got positives. But I'm going to choose to pick the one with negatives in it. So first, let's establish slope. Slope is y. Again, make sure you remember it's x, y, x, y. So use the y's. So y is 0, take away -4. Again, don't lose your negative. And the 1, take away -1. If you do that, that's 0 plus 4, because it's double negative. And then 1 plus 2, 1 plus 1, which is 2, giving me a slope of 2. So I have slope. Now any line that is parallel must also have a slope that's the same. So it's 2. And perpendicular, remember that's a 2 over 1. Perpendicular, you got to flip it over and change the sign, -1 over 2. And remember, the assessment's going to look just like this. So now we're going to move on to the back side, the second part of this, which now we're going to write equations of lines. Equation of the line. Now don't panic. Keep in mind, they're going to give you, even the state and on this test, is they're going to give you this equation. They're not going to tell you where everything is. I'm going to repeat what we said before. The M stands for your slope. So you have to find a slope, and you need a point. There's other forms. Again, there's other forms. But when they tell you slope point or point slope form, this is what we're looking for. And if I'm doing that, I need a point and a slope. So here, if I look at what's given, they clearly give me 2 points. I'm going to pick one. I'm going to pick that one. It doesn't matter. You can pick either one. So I already have a point, but they don't give me slope. Well, we already showed we know how to find slope. Slope is the change in y over change in x. Be careful again. Make sure you note it's x and y, x and y. So I'm going to take my 2 slopes, my 2 y's, -8, subtract the -2 over 5, take away 0. Again, don't lose your negatives. -8 plus 2 is -6 over 5. So I have slope. I got one thing. All I need to know is a point. I got my point. Now going to this formula, I'm going to write the y. Now I'm going to write the y that I chose, which is -8, equals, move this up because I might do some more work with it. There we go. So I've got that, m. I need my m next, and that's my slope. Then x, subtract. Now I place my x, which I have chosen the 5. Now this is in good form. This is called point slope form, but they could ask for slope intercept form. That's simply where you put it in the y equals mx plus b form. And when I do that, well here I just changed the double negative plus. I see that I need to distribute. It means multiply across the parenthesis. And I get -6x, -6/5 x, plus now in your calculator, or however you want to do it, it's -6 times -5 divided by 5, or just put in your calculator. When you multiply that fraction times -5, you get +6. And so if I want to solve this and get this to be in the right form, I can subtract 8, finishing off the problem, that gives me y equals -6/5 x, and then 6 subtract -8 is -2. This is not what they asked for. They did not ask for slope intercept form. They asked for point slope form. So I was good to leave it just like this. However, if they ask you to put it in slope intercept form, you got to go a little further and you got to simplify it like that. Okay, next question. Again, this one says the equation of a line. That's my most important thing. That's what I would highlight in the test. But it says line parallel. Parallel lines have the same slope. And if I'm going to write an equation, it is slope and a point. Well, in this case, they give me an equation of a line, but that's not the line I want. But it's parallel. So I want its slope. Right now, if I read that, I have a slope of 5. because that fits the form y equals mx plus b, and m is your slope. So I have m as 5. I know the slope of my line, but I don't want the same point as the one that's given in this equation. I don't want this one. This is not the line I want. So I only want this slope. Well, they got to give me a point. Well, look what they give you. It's right here. They give you the x and the y. So I'm good to go to write this now. I'm going to use the same form as above, point, slope, form. Since they didn't tell me what form to put it in, I'm going to put it in whatever form I want. And this is the easiest one. So y subtract 7 equals m, which is 5. Then x subtract the x I'm given, which is negative 3. But the only thing I would want to do to make this look a little better is I'm going to make that double negative a plus 3. And I'm going to leave it alone because I don't want to make any mistakes. They didn't tell me to put it in the other form, so I'm just going to leave it in point slope form. Again, that question and this question are very important because these are the kinds of questions I'm going to ask you on the state test, and you know you're going to see it on the test tomorrow. Equation of the line perpendicular. Okay, so I still need equation of a line. So right away I'm thinking I need this. And I'm thinking again, I need an m slope, and I need my point. Well, conveniently, if you look carefully, they give you the point. We've got the point already. So that means all I need is slope. Keyword, perpendicular. So look at this equation that they give me. I don't want that point. I see a 0.37. I don't want that point because that's the wrong line. All I want from this thing is a slope. Right now, if I read that thing, I see the slope is 1/5. But again, I don't want that slope. I want the perpendicular slope. So if I want the m perp, okay, well that just means I flip it over and change the sign. So it's 5/1 and make it negative. I don't want to leave it as that because I know that if I can simplify it, I got -5. So slope, point, put it together in your form, y minus my y equals m x minus my x. Again, they don't tell me what form to put this in. They really can't tell me this is wrong. Now, I, of course, would think that you would want to simplify it if you wanted to. You can do the distribution. Again, this is not required. They didn't ask you to do this, but I can distribute that -5. And -5 times 0 is 0, so I'm not going to write it. And then I can add 8 to both sides. Now I can put this in another form that's looks a little bit better, and that's this form. Again, they didn't ask for that, so I'm not going to do any extra work if I don't have to. I'm going to leave it in the form that's easiest for me to use, and that's this one right here. Next question. Okay, now we're on a different topic. Now we're doing midpoints. When you're finding the middle of a point, middle between two numbers, you always add and divide by 2. The thing here is we're looking for a midpoint, meaning I need an x and a y. So here's my two x's. I want the middle of my x's, so I'm going to take -1, add the 9, and divide by 2. That's what I do to find the middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my y's. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add those two together and divide by 2. See what I'm doing is I get a point. Whatever I get here is my x. Whatever I get there is my y. So to finish this problem off, let's simplify that. Remember in your calculator, add first, hit the enter key, and then divide by 2. I'm going to go ahead and simplify that to 8/2. So I add at the top, divide by 2. And then the other one is 14 divided by 2. But I still can do the divide by 2. So I get 4 and 7. Done. And I know we went over this in class, but I'm glad you're listening to this and make sure you review it because it's just one more time for you to get it in your head. Okay, now when they ask for the ratio is kind of the same thing as a midpoint, but we don't want it right in the middle. We want it in the parts of 2 to 5. Well, if I have 2 parts and 5 parts, that's a total of 7. So similar to my midpoint, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set myself up for the ratios. My ratio is 2 parts to 5 parts over a total of 7 parts. And I'm going to do that with both my x's and my y's, so I'm going to need 2 sets of these. There it is. Now what I'm going to do So I'm going to pick my two x's so I can do the x ratio. So x is negative 9 and 5. So 2 times negative 9 plus 5 times my other x, which is 5. Be careful, make sure you write that, because when I'm grading you, I can look and see what small errors you might be making, like switching the numbers around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my y's. Y. So times 0 plus times negative 7. Just like we did with midpoint, I'm going to simplify the top first before I divide by the 7. So negative 2, or 2 times negative 9 plus 5 times 5. Put that in your calculator, hit the enter key. You're going to get 7. And then I'm going to divide by 7 in a minute. And then I'm going to take for the y's, 2 times 0 plus 5 times negative 7 is negative 35 over 7. Now I can just do the divide. 7 divided by 7 is 1. Negative 35 divided by 7 is negative 5. Now I have the point that has a ratio of 2 to 5 that sits between these two numbers. They don't give you that formula. They don't give you the midpoint formula. You're simply going to have to remember those two. Distance form is a lot more complicated. I'll actually explain later in the year where we get this from. But they give you this. I'm going to put it in black so you understand we get it. And what we do is we're going to take the two x's and subtract them. Nice thing about this thing is you mess up the order, it's not going to matter. Just don't get your x's and y's confused. But that's the formula they give you. Okay, note your x and your y, your x and your y. And I'm going to start with, all I have to do is compute this. So the big thing is to take your time with the calculator. Don't worry about the square root first. We're going to worry about this inside first, underneath. So I'm going to take my two x's, x and x, and put those two together. So negative 9, and then subtract the other one, which is 7, plus, now I'm going to do my y's, 6 and 5. 6 take away 5, square. Now in your calculator, type in this whole thing underneath. Do not do the square root, just this part right there. Don't worry about the square root thing. Type that in. If you do that, you're going to get, when you do the negative 9 subtract 7, square it, make sure it's in parentheses, plus the negative, the 6 take away 5 in parentheses, and then power of 2. If you do that, you should get, now I got to do this with my head, Lord knows. 16 squares, 256. 16 is, I got to do this real quick for you. It's going to come out in your calculator to be 256, 257. So you figure that out, you get 257. Again, you could just do that in your calculator. So when you do the thing in red, you're going to get that. And now this is what's referred to as an exact solution. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to tell somebody to measure something at square root of 256. So what you do is you're going to get an approximate solution. When you stick that in your calculator, square root, you have to hit the second, and then you hit this x squared button. And when you do that, you get this number. Now they can ask you to round it in a bunch of different ways. Usually it's in tenths or hundredths. If it's hundredths, I'm going to use that one. So when I approximate this, I'm going to use the approximation to be 16.03 if they say hundredths. If they say tenths, I stop right there. I doubt they'll use thousands, but that's the thousands. And that's it. That's what your assessment's on. Good luck, and come in the morning if you need any additional help.